Hello and welcome back to the Persuasion Lab podcast. I'm your host, Moeed Amin. The goal for this show is to help elevate your persuasion and selling skills. And we look at that through the lens of science, deep levels of research. And this is not just for salespeople, this is for anyone where persuasion is a core part of your success. And we also look at the wider aspects of persuasion, not just the kind of core conventional wisdom elements of sales. So we've had experts on the show, from functional medicine practitioners to personal brand experts to human behavior experts, you name it. If it has anything to do with your excellence in persuasion, we will discuss that and have the right people on the show. Now, my guest today is a veteran of 36 years. He's led sales in well-known brands like Oracle, Fujitsu, DSP, and Capgemini. Since 2019, he has dived deep into social media and kind of social selling. And he is a contributor for the likes of Rev Genius as well as Power MBA. He is currently the director or the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. And their mission is to help businesses tap into the world of social media to better connect with their network. So whether that's your customers, your suppliers, your partners, your investors, or even future employees as well. Now, you probably already know the potential of social media. You're likely using it quite heavily in your GTM approach. But the challenge is that a lot of companies actually use social media in a destructive way and often harming their relationships with a network as well as their own brand. So my guest with his business is on a mission to change that. So please help me welcome someone who also feels that he should have played Quidditch for England, Mr. Tim Hughes. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hello, Moeed. It's really exciting to be here. Thank you so much. It's what a wonderful day to be alive.
I have to say, yeah, it's very for any of you that are not in the UK, it's actually snowing outside.
It's been snowing, yes. It's a lovely white. I live in London. We don't get snow very often, but it's just a beautiful stillness that you get with this snow. It's lovely.
Oh, it was absolutely calm and still. And I have a young daughter, and as anyone knows, when you have young children, they just go absolutely excited about the snow.
Imagine.
So it really starts your day off in the right way. So I have to say, it's really good to speak with you today, Tim. I got to ask, before all the stuff we talk about social media, I've got to ask, why Quidditch for England?
Well, actually, it's the question is right on point, and it's probably going to be what we're going to talk about today, which is that our job as salespeople are to get conversations, because conversations create sales. What I sell and what probably everybody out there sells requires us to have a conversation. Your summary title on LinkedIn is the most visible thing about you on the internet, and therefore use it. What you should be doing is using it to create conversations. Now, the mistake that most people make, because most LinkedIn trainers and influencers seem to tell you this, is to put what you do. It's a massive mistake, because I can look at it and I go, well, I don't want to buy that. So I get lots of people coming to me saying, and their title will be, I help small businesses with their accounting. Now, I already have an accountant. So I just go, I mean, even before, if they try and connect to me, I know what they're going to do. They're going to try and sell to me. So I just ignore it. So there's people out there losing business because they're following what these so-called experts are telling you. It's about a conversation. What I get with my title is people go, what on earth is that? And people ask me questions, and it creates a conversation. And the conversations create sales. So the point is what you need to do on your summary title is it needs to be your why, not your what. It's there. So if you Google yourself, Google loves LinkedIn because it's full of content. And probably, unless you have your own blog site or something like that, the first thing that will come up will be your LinkedIn profile. Your job is to get someone to come to your profile. Now, if it says, I help small businesses with accounting, you just go, well, I'm just going to try and sell me some accounting, so I'm not interested. If they go, what's should have played Quidditch for England, they'll go, what's that? They'll come to my LinkedIn profile. And as I have the professional edition of LinkedIn, it tells me who's been to my LinkedIn profile. So even if they don't connect to me or say anything, I've got an ability to have a conversation, because I say, oh, Mohit's been to my LinkedIn profile. I can go away and have that conversation. Conversations create sales.
And should it be, because you raise a good point about, you know, your tagline on LinkedIn, and there's been a lot of advice out there, as you just said.
A lot of bad advice out there.
A lot of bad, okay, good point. A lot of bad advice. So using your example here, should it be something as left field as Quidditch for England, or can it be something else? So let's take the example of the accountant. How should that accountant think about what the tagline should be? We're not going to probably come up with a tagline right now. Maybe you can, but I'm interested in helping our viewers and listeners understand the process by which they come to that answer.
So one of the things about a lot of these experts, so-called experts, is they don't understand simple psychology. In our brain, we have two parts of the brain. We have the modern brain, and we have the old brain, or the limbic brain. What we need to be what the modern brain does, it understands facts. So what you're doing, as soon as you say, I help small businesses with accountancy, is that you're appealing to the modern brain. It understands language. It understands yes or no. You might understand facts. So when you say someone has 25 years experience in something, what you're doing is that you're talking to that brain, part of the brain. Now, someone can say, I've got 26 years experience. So, but what you're doing is what you need to be doing is you need to be appealing to the limbic brain. The limbic brain doesn't understand language. It's the brain that we had when we were on the Serengeti, where what we needed to do when we got up in the morning was basically make sure that we weren't eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. And what we do, so there's certain instances in life where people say, I've got this gut reaction. I've got this gut reaction. I think that Tim Hughes is an idiot. That's your limbic brain talking to you. Or where you have that, that feeling, I really like Tim Hughes. He seems to be saying something that's really useful. And what you need to be doing is that you need to be appealing to that limbic brain, because what you'll do is that's the thing where people will come and look at your profile. That's where people will walk towards you. And hopefully what we'll do is we'll talk today about the transformation that's taken place with social media. We know that social media has changed the world. We know it's changed society, and we know it's changed business. But we still have a lot of people in denial. And they're in denial because they're so used to doing things that they have done since the 1980s. But what we've seen with social media is the fact that people are actually, if you use social media in the right way, you'll actually get prospects walking towards you rather than walking away from you. And this is, so the summary title is actually one of the ways that you can actually start getting people going, so what does that mean? And, there's 850 million people on LinkedIn. What you need to do is be different. And at the moment, what happens with salespeople is that they all try and look exactly the same. So the buyer can't differentiate them. And what happens is, what you want is that as people walk down the high street, which is LinkedIn, and they look in all the different shop windows, they see you and they go, that looks interesting. So Namus Consulting, which is a 120-person Oracle reseller, they're clients of ours. They're in a situation, the CEO tells me this, Chris Mason tells me the story about how a buyer was on social media. They were looking for a solution to their problem. And what they did was that they actually walked towards the salesperson and said, you look interesting, can you help me? That turned into a $2.6 million deal. Now, they've taken another $500,000 out of that client. Now, the converse to that is that most people look at salespeople on social media and say, you're salespeople, I'm not interested in you, I don't trust you, I don't believe you, I don't believe a word you'll say, and you're going to try and sell me something that I don't want. And this is the transformation that we've been able to work out with our methodology, where we actually have people walking towards salespeople saying, can you help me? And that's fundamentally different.
Can you give examples of headlines that you have seen to be really good? What would that look like?
Any headline that creates a conversation. And in fact, when I look out on LinkedIn, I would say that 99.999999999% of headlines are rubbish, because people are listening to this false narrative that's out there, these so-called experts that actually don't understand stuff. When you put I get, as I say, I get people sending me connection requests. For a start, they don't understand how to send connection requests. And it says, other classic I get is I help CEOs lose weight and get fit. Well, I don't need to do that. So I just go ignore. And it's like, they're losing business. Whereas if it said something like should have played Quidditch for England, it's like, what's that? Oh, that's interesting. And then maybe we had a conversation. And then the conversation turns around to, he said, so do you work out? And that's the difference. This is, social media is social media. It's not spam media. And people have to get away from this notion that life is all about interruption. So if you go back to the 1980s, when I first started in sales, we rang people up, we interrupted them, and you pitch. Then in the 1990s, we found email marketing, and that was great because it was free. And that what you did was you interrupted people and you pitch. And then if you think about advertising, what advertising is, that basically what you do is you interrupt and you pitch. And people therefore think that the way that you sell is that you interrupt and you pitch, except you don't do it anymore. Well, if you do, your business isn't, you're not going to be in business for very long. This is social media. This is social on media. And what you do is you have conversations. And research shows that people come to social media to have those conversations. We don't come to social media to read brochures or brochureware or the rubbish that most companies put out at which they deem to think is content. We're not interested in it. And when you say, okay, are you really interested in a brochure? Everyone goes, no. Well, of course you're not. You can get that on the website. And in fact, most people that are sharing, billions of dollars are being spent on employee advocacy, when really what they're doing is that they're training the algorithm to A, ignore that person, and B, for the customers to ignore that person. And so there's a whole this whole thing that's fundamentally wrong in sales and marketing, which is we know that marketing's broken. And the fact of the matter is that people are in denial about it and they don't do anything about it. And my book, or my first book that came out back in 2016, readdresses that and explains about the way that the world has changed. And COVID has just accelerated that. We know that everybody's online. We know that we search in a different way. We know we don't look at ads. We know that we don't take cold calls anymore. We know that we don't have time to look at spam emails that come in, and we create rules so that we don't see it. We know all those things. And then we basically go away and commission advertising, or commission, put more stuff out through email marketing. Why are people self-sabotaging themselves when they know that there's a solution to it, but they don't do it? And then we see layoffs. Then we see layoffs in the market, and you go, right, okay, so is there a connection here between the fact that you're using legacy sales and marketing methods, and the fact that you're laying staff off? I mean, workers, the employees need to understand, and they need to understand what's being done in terms of the leadership in their companies, because if they're the people that are going to be laid off, and if those companies are still using legacy sales and marketing methods, those employees in the front line are going to be the ones that are going to be laid off. So they need to basically rise up and do something about it.
So are you saying that social selling, if done the right way, of course, that should represent the larger proportion of your kind of outbound sales or marketing approach? Are you saying that basically we now have a bunch of companies that are still using old methodologies like cold calling, email marketing, cold emailing, etc., and that forms, let's say arbitrarily, that forms 80% of their outbound strategy? You're saying now that should be flipped on its head, and social selling should take the majority?
The first thing about social selling is that, social selling is a methodology. It's a process. There's a lot of people out there that seem to think, here we are sitting in the fourth industrial revolution, which is this movement to social and digital. And the answer to that is basically to train salespeople in a 2-hour hints and tips session. It's a strategy. It's not a tactic. If you start training people in hints and tips sessions, I can guarantee you that you will get zero response. You're wasting your money. And anybody that basically signs up to this, you're just wasting time and effort. This is a process. Everybody who's been through our process switches off all of the legacy methods after a certain amount of time. They come in thinking, oh, this is just an extra thing that they've got to do during the day. And then when they recognize, we've got clients that are getting a 10,000 to 1 ROI. Now, I know people that are spamming people on LinkedIn who've moved from, so email marketing, for example, HubSpot say that email marketing basically has a 98% failure rate. Salesforce say that cold calling has anything between a 98% and a 99% failure rate. Anybody who's standing up in front of a board today and say, right, our strategy is email marketing, it's got a 98% failure rate, but trust me, it's going to be great. And cold calling is 99%, but if we spam enough people, maybe someone will talk to us. Come on, it's nearly 2023, and the people that are doing that are going to fail. When you're seeing significant changes taking place, and people, I've got clients. We switched off the Google ads, we've switched off the email. We have a client who is an email marketing company. They can't sell anything using their email marketing tool. They've switched it off. They've even stopped trying to sell through it. They're now transforming to social selling. Social selling to sell an email marketing tool that doesn't work. The world is completely gone mad. Here are organizations that recognize that they're getting business. Namos, as I said, $2.6 million deal just by someone walking towards them. That's business being taken off the competition. This is not, if you want to sell, I live near Twickenham, rugby tickets for, and you want to do something like that. It's a very, very quick, do you want to go or do you want to go? Get your credit card and I'll basically sell you a ticket. Cold calling, great. If you're in the business of B2B enterprise and you're looking to build relationships and sell significant deals, you won't do it by, you can't ring up the cold call, the finance director of GlaxoSmithKline, which is one of the big companies near me. And what it's doing is it just pushes the salespeople lower and lower in the organization. We're talking to people that are desperate. They've got no pipeline. They've got rents to pay. They've got people to pay, and they just listen to the latest thing that's on LinkedIn. From somebody who doesn't actually have any data. It's just that we actually called out one social selling expert, and he said, "Oh, it's just a laugh." He said, "I've just put this meme out for a laugh." It's like, okay, you've got a whole bunch of people here that are changing their strategy in their business based on what you think is a laugh. How do you feel about that? Oh, it's just a laugh. Come on, as what we did when we set up the business, the whole business is to set up and connect social media with revenue and profit. And that's what we do. And I've had feedback after feedback from the first book, which is it's the first book I've read where we can actually see the connection between doing stuff on social media and actually getting pipeline and getting revenue. And what I've done with the second book is I bulked it up. So we've moved from 187 pages to 306. I've updated all of the text, and I've made sure that I've used all of the knowledge that we have right now and put that into the book. So this is about talking to organizations about how they get digital, how can they basically own the marketplace. So this is and we also talk about organizations who are the leading technical and commercial digital influencer in your market and vertical, how you can basically take the market and basically own the narrative, push the oxygen away from all of your clients. This is something that we've always wanted to do. Ever since I moved into sales, I wanted to be able to get at a situation where we could actually control the narrative. And now organizations can do that, but they just want to send out emails to people and waste their time and waste their money, rather than actually saying, look, we want to go balls out. We want to be the number one. We want to generate revenue. We want to generate leads and meetings, and we're going to do it strategically by understanding how we can exploit the possibilities of social media, simple psychology, and own that and own the market. And organizations are doing it. So in the book, I've got Chris Fleming. You can go out and look on LinkedIn and look for Chris Fleming. He's the CEO of Cyberhawk. They're a drones company. They look at drones for oil rigs and pylons and things like that. 2 years ago, he decided that they were going to be a digital company. That's empowering the people to understand what digital is. It's not about apps and stuff. This is about empowering your people to understand digital, to use the new way of working to get your new processes to strip out cost and make you more efficient. He talks about it I've actually got him to contribute to this second part of the book. Now, he decided to be a digital company 2 years ago. Now, if you're not a digital company, you're 2 years behind. This is not some future state. People are already doing this, and this is one of the things about this second book, which is I've got people from Ericsson, from Mercer, from Namos, from Ring Central, from Telstra, from Cyberhawk. How to run a set of QBR reviews in a digital world, all basically contributing to a book about how to sell in the modern world, modern selling in the modern world. And Chris Fleming is really insightful. There's a page and a half of his of how he discusses about being a digital business, and the fact that he understands the need for content. Because we know that the modern buyer is looking for content. They're looking for insight. They're looking to be entertained. They're looking for to be told things they don't know. They're not looking for brochures. They're looking for insightful content. And what they do as a drones company is that they actually have loads of it because they're a drones company. So, he's put out things like, if you think about those big wind power propellers, they put a drone down one of those propellers. It's fascinating what it looks like. But the thing is that we have to, every product, whatever we do, however interesting or however boring, we have to create content about it because we know that our clients are looking for it. So it's just wanted to go and talk a little bit about the digital and the process and the change that's taken place. And the way that organizations are working differently today.
Everything you've said, I agree with, by the way, right? And I got a chance to read the book early. Thank you for sending it to me. So
no, you're
just
welcome.
For everyone who's wondering, what is this book? What is the title? So the title is Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Change Makers. Now, you obviously
the second
published
edition, yes.
This is the second edition now.
It's a yellow cover, yeah.
Which is the one behind you, right?
It is the one behind me. If you're watching in just the audio, then you won't see it.
Yeah. So what you've talked a lot about, we've got to be digital, right? The approach has to be different. And I completely agree with you about the huge inefficiencies when it comes to cold calling and cold emailing. 1 or 2% conversion rate is not something to build a sustainable business on.
No.
And so here's the big question, which I hear from a lot of businesses, which is, how do we go about it, right? There's obviously a transition period, but how do we start to get better at using digital, using social media in order to advance our sales? So can you walk us through, Tim, what are the kind of steps in the process that we should be acting on? Well,
I'm obviously biased. So, I know one sales leader who's buying 100 copies of my book to give to his sales force for Christmas. For me, it's $20, $30, £20 is not a lot of money to spend in terms of getting a background. Every senior leader, everybody in sales and every leader has to understand what this is. In the world today, we have to know certain things. So, 20 years ago, we all had to learn what PowerPoint and word processors and stuff were. And then, of course, what happens is that kids actually learned it in school, and now it's just embedded in society, and it's just a normal thing. It's the same as that. What we have to do is actually start learning and understanding what digital is. Now, there will be people out there that say it's just not for them. I mean, I have a friend who's actually just moved jobs because he's moved to a job where he doesn't want to, the organization he's moved to, he actually checked out and they're not doing anything on social, and he's going to sit there for 5 years until he retires. And there will always be people like that. When I first got my first laptop, which for some people will think is, when laptops first came out, and 25% of the sales force said, I'm sorry, but we don't type. We're salespeople. We have a sales administrator, and they type. And they went to other companies that didn't do that. And of course, those people are retired, and the companies that had the sales administrators don't exist anymore. They went and worked at digital and all of those companies that don't exist. And so, there is this process that goes on. We have to understand this. And a good place to start would be my book. But the other thing is that this is skills that people don't have. So we're talking about digital skills. So what we see is that there's a lot of people that will go and get someone in their 20s. They're digital natives. They'll understand it. They may understand what social media is, but they don't have the business acumen to go with it. This is an understanding of how to get leads and meetings. So we've seen people recruited. When you look at their LinkedIn profiles, they clearly don't understand. We've got someone who came to me the other day, said, oh, yes, I'm a social media expert. You've not posted on LinkedIn for 2 years, any content. But how can you call yourself a social media expert if you don't even know how to use social media? So we have this situation where we have lots of experts, but actually not any expertise. Now, the only organization I know that's actually doing social properly, if you go to look at any of the DLA Ignite people, we're all the high watermark. We're the only company in the world that has a process that's been certified by a sales governing body. So the Institute of Sales Professionals, as they are now, have basically certified our social selling methodology. They've gone through it, they've bent it and taken it apart, and it's now, so you can get a qualification. It's the only qualification in the world in social selling by using our methodology, and the ISP has certified that. Now, so people can keep spending time and wasting money tinkering around the edges, doing these, we're going to do a hints and tips session, which will generate nothing. Or what they do is that they understand that we need to have a process. We need to actually learn something new. This is something that's different. And all the examples that I can give you of where people have got business benefit is where they've actually understood that the things that what they need to do. Now, I can walk you through and say, right, there's 3 things that you need. One is a buyer-centric profile. This is a profile based on your buyer, not on you. This is a radical thing, because most salespeople think it's all about them, and it's not. It's all about the buyer. The buyer is in control. The buyer is searching. The buyer is looking for a solution. You need a network. So you need as wide and as varied network as you can have. Now, if you're not connected to people in the companies that you're trying to sell to or influence, you're not going to sell to them. You need to connect to them, but you need to connect to them in a way that's not spammy. Because when you connect to somebody, that gives you an opportunity to have a conversation. And as we know, conversations generate sales. Not in, oh, by the way, are you okay? Oh, by the way, I've got this product, and it's really, that's spam. We teach people how to connect to connect to people, to have conversations, how to drive conversations to generate sales. The third thing that you need is content, and this isn't brochures or brochuresware. This isn't white papers or yet another document that says buy my product because we're great. My background is selling accounting systems. Oracle, SAP, Sage, you name every single accounting system, you go out and look, and they all market exactly the same. They all say the same thing. So as a buyer, you can't differentiate it. So what we do in this world of social is that we are actually we build relationships, because when I connect with you, the connection is with you, not your company. If you move If you move from Oracle to SAP, my relationship is with you at SAP, not with you at Oracle. And brands cannot work this out. They cannot understand. They think that the brand is all important. It's not anymore. Cristiano Ronaldo has more followers than the top 10 brands in the world put together. Personality and people are more important than brands. So your job as a company is to empower your people, to give them the digital skills they need, to basically be able to go out and walk digital corridors and have digital conversations. You need to give them those skills, connecting to people, building relationships with people. Now, when I say building relationships, people often think and look through a lens from 1980, which is I go out to a networking event, I get a business card, I'm trying to get permission to maybe talk to the person. You know as well as I do in the digital age, I can before this event, I'd never met you. We were recommended by a colleague of mine to talk, and we then exchanged some messages on LinkedIn, and now I'm sitting here. So relationships can actually happen really quickly as long as you have you looked at my LinkedIn profile. This guy kind of looks like he knows what he's talking about. Should have played Quidditch for England. That's kind of curious. Okay, right. Okay. It all builds up to a picture where, okay, that person is okay. They're going to come along and they're going to talk some stuff. Would have looked at my connections. Oh, he's connected to a number of people. Yeah, I know that. We probably have 500. You're active in the world of sales. I'm active. We probably have 500. Oh yeah, he's connected to Steve. Yeah, Steve's a really good guy. Therefore, Tim's obviously a good person. So we've got this network. And I also put out content. I put out content every single day. The moment I finish this, I'm going to go and do a video. And I'm also, I do written content because I know that my buyers are looking for this stuff. So there's the three things that you need. And what that does is it gets you meetings. Because you go, that person looks okay. They obviously know Steve, and they obviously know what they're talking about because they're putting out interesting content. And this is fundamentally different from the way that people think that they should be selling today, which is the way that they have been for the last 30 years. Brent Adamson, we had him on one of my podcasts the other day. Brent is if people don't know, he's one of the co-authors of The Challenger Sale. He said there's lots of tech companies out there at the moment who think they're 10 years ahead of everybody else in the way that they're selling and marketing. In fact, they're 10 years behind because they think that playing the system or playing the odds by sending out making as many phone calls and as many emails and as many in-mails as that they can spam out there, that somehow or other that is modern selling. It's not. It's selling from the 1980s. He says it's 10 years. It's 30 years old. And all that does is that if we throw enough shit at the wall, some of it will stick. That isn't selling. That's throwing shit at the wall and hoping it will stick. Here we have a mechanism. So I'll give you an example. We were targeting a PE company, private equity company. So we did some research. We found out what their business issue. Their business issue is that because of COVID, they're not going to sell out in 3 years. It's going to take them 5. That's going to have a big impact to them because they can't move. What they want to do is take a company, grow it, sell it, and then move on. 5 years is going to have an impact to them. So what we did was that we all have great profiles. We connected to the various people that we needed to in the PE company, not one person, but all the different people that would actually we needed to influence. And we put out a piece of content, not a brochure or something that says, hey, buy our product because we're great. We put out a piece of content that actually talked about the one issue that they have, which is that they need to grow. And what they were looking to do is actually get international expansion, because if they are able to expand internationally, what they think they can do is actually sell out in the 3 years instead of the 5 years. So what we did was that my colleague put that out on the Monday, put a piece of content.
What kind of, sorry to interrupt, Tim. When you said a piece of content, was that written content? Was that
he put out a piece of written content on the Monday. Now, remember, we already have great profiles. We're not spammy profiles. We've already connected to the people within the company that we need to actually influence. So we know that they're going to see the content, and then we write a piece of content. Now, that piece of content could be applicable for every PE company. But we actually aimed it at a particular individual. So we put that out.
You wrote that content. You didn't send it to them directly. You
posted
it out.
We just put it on our profiles. But because we're connected to the people, and because we're connected to those people and people that influence them and stuff like that, we know that they're pretty much going to see that. We also know that because we've connected to them, they know who we are because we've got great profiles.
And you didn't tag them. You didn't tag them in any way. You just posted it out, right?
Just posted it out. So did that on the Monday. Tuesday, my colleague got a call, said that's really interesting. Can you come and talk to us? Wednesday, we presented to them, and he said we have an introductory presentation that we give to people about introduction to social media and the changes that's taken place, and we walk them through some of the clients. So we did that on the Tuesday. Wednesday, he basically invited us to go to present to his board. Friday, we presented to the wider board of the PE company. Monday, we got a purchase order. Now,
okay, but is that a typical experience, or
it's a fairly typical experience because of the fact that what you got to remember that what people are doing now and the way that they buy, is that they actually go out online and they do their research online. We get a lot of people coming to us saying we've been out, we've looked at and we want to buy, and because what they've done is that the buying process takes place without us knowing about it, and they turn up and we get a piece of inbound saying we've gone out and we've looked at all the different people and we want to buy you. But the discussions that we often see online is, oh yeah, social selling is you just sit there and you just hope. No, this is a proactive way of selling. And what I explained to you is a proactive way that we said, here's an account. This is a particular account that we want to sell to. And then the speed at which that basically we were able to actually take that to close, because what we've done is that we've made sure that we've got the connections. They're seeing that we're putting out content that's interesting, and what that's doing is it's resonating with them. And then what we're doing is we're getting meetings, and then we're taking those to close.
So I mean, I want to break this down actually for our viewers and listeners, because what you just shared there was so powerful. And I'm worried it's going to go over the heads of some of the readers and listeners, not because they can't grasp it, but because it might seem too simple or too, they've probably heard it before. What you did there, it's not really it wasn't about social selling. In fact, when I read your book, I realized that social selling is the medium, and you've got to play to the rules of that medium by how people engage. But there are some fundamentals that are very important, and if you don't get them right, it doesn't matter what medium you use or channel or mode of communication you use, it's still not going to work. And you gave an example there, Tim, of one that's really powerful. It's one that I talk about time and time again. I put out in my research. It's going to be in my upcoming book, and that is you came up with a hypothesis, right? It's not just insight-led sales, right? It's not just throwing out a piece of data anymore. You literally came out with a hypothesis that said, hey, we see that for you as a private equity, you want to exit a business or sell a business in 3 years. And because of what's happening now, you're now pushing it to 5 years, which is going to have this detrimental impact. Here are some suggestions that we have around how you can bring that back down to 3 years. And that's good times for everyone. And what you then did was said, right, okay, we're not going to send this out via cold message or via an email, via cold call or via cold email. Yep. We're going to send it out on LinkedIn, and we're going to use LinkedIn in the best way possible. And that is not sending a direct message through LinkedIn, which is, again, just a different form.
It's a different form of email.
Of spam. Yeah. We're going to actually post this out because we're already connected. When we did the process properly, so that when we do send this out, it's not directly at them, so they don't feel as if they're being pitched to. But secondly, we're playing to the rules, not to the rules, but we're playing within the kind of dimensions of that social media platform, and we know that they're going to see it. But here's the point I really want to come across, which is none of that would have worked if you didn't get the hypothesis right. So you obviously did quite a bit of homework there. Can you tell me how long did it take you to do that piece of homework about and understand about them and then craft the content?
We'd understood, we'd spoken to somebody in the marketplace, and that's what they told us. It was a classic question. What are the things that are keeping you awake at night? And we were told that was what the situation was, in terms of they needed to get international expansion. Now, the thing about content, the mistake that people make with content is that right now, your marketing department will be making very, very bland content, because the idea is, what we do is that we try and make it as bland as we can, so it will appeal to as many people as it can. In fact, exactly. It appeals to nobody. It becomes completely vanilla. Now, the other thing, the mistake that they do is that they write a piece of content to show how clever they are. So white papers, for example, is a classic example of a company trying to prove how clever it is. But you've got to remember that when you read something, you only remember one thing. So they'll have 150 clever things in a white paper, but you'd only, even if you actually read it, I don't think anybody does, but you'd only remember one thing. So the thing that you do with content is, if it's a 300-word blog, you'll read it. If it's a 2,000-word white paper, you'll put it in that file on the desktop that says, I'll read this when I'm dead. So what you do with content is that we didn't go in there and say, there's this issue, this issue, this issue, this issue, this issue. We went in with one issue, kept it small and short in terms of 300 words. And that was the way that you get people to talk. We then can put out another one saying, this is what the second issue is. But don't forget, this piece of content could actually be applicable to any PE company that has this sort of impact. But what we're doing is that we're using content in a way to actually make sure that we get and accelerate the deal. So rather than basically throwing shit at the wall and hoping it will stick, basically this is saying, we know what the business issue is. We can accelerate the opportunity by allowing us to do that piece of focus. Now, I can also give you an example about where we use content in a way to get leads and meetings where we don't know what the business issue is. So, for example, one of the things that you'll see a lot on social media, especially on LinkedIn, is that you'll get this debate about personal content. I put up details about the fact that my father was dying on social media, because what I wanted to do was share with people and for people to understand the trauma that I was going through, and that creates a conversation. May not create a conversation right then, but people in my network would understand that, because what we're doing here is we're getting people to understand who Tim Hughes is. So if the classic example is, you go to a salesperson and say, what's the best way to get a deal closed? And they say, well, I take them out for dinner. I take the client out for dinner, or I take the client to a sports game. Okay, that's great. So when you do that, what do you do? Do you take some brochures along and basically talk about business? And they say, no, of course I don't. I talk about their family and the fact that you've got a daughter and they play in the snow. Because as soon as you start understanding these things, we start getting this crossover, and we start knowing, liking, and trusting us. So we know that when we go to the sports and we go out for dinner with our clients, we don't talk about work. And this is what we see on LinkedIn. What we're seeing is a recognition that social media reflects us, who we are. We're not interested in brochures. We know that. Research shows that. So stop sharing them. What we're interested in is what we call live content. We're interested in things to do with business. So an article that's going to help us, not a brochure. We're also interested in who the person is. What does Tim get up to at the weekend? Because that's what we would talk about if we were getting to know somebody, especially a prospect. So, for example, one of the things that we do in this introduction to social media presentation that we give to new prospects, we have a particular subject where one of my team, it was their his son's 16th birthday, and it was during COVID, and his son wanted to get out and get drunk, but he had to go to the beach with his dad, which was boring. But dad posted some pictures of it, and you've all seen stuff on that on LinkedIn. The difference is that we have a methodology, as we talked about, behind that, how to harvest that. So off the back of that, he got 184 leads. He got 6 C-level meetings. He got 2 proposals and 1 purchase order. Now, it took him 10 minutes to do. Now, there's not one single demand gen activity, cold calling, email, advertising, whatever, that can generate you 6 C-level meetings in 10 minutes. Now, we're not, this is different from saying we know a business issue and we're going to target a particular account. This is a way of prospecting, and prospecting at scale to get you the level of, 6 C-level meetings in 10 minutes. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Being able to do that, this is why organizations, once they start social selling, they start switching off the Google ads and they start switching off the emails and stuff like that, which is, they know it's not generating anything. It's just, they're just living on hope. Here's a strategy that's going to get them, you've got 10 salespeople and you've got 6 C-level meetings. That's 60 C-level meetings that you can get. I mean, that's going to transform your forecast. This is what when I talk about transformation, transforming the forecast of the revenues and the competitive advantage of organizations today. That's just wanted to make sure that you've got that difference in the type of content.
Yeah, I mean, Tim, this has been an incredible conversation. I've been involved in I've been involved in using social media as a means to get my thoughts out there, to hear from others, to connect with more people. But having read your book and now having had this conversation with you, I realize there's so much that I didn't know. And so I've learned a huge amount. And not only that, I've learned to appreciate a huge amount from you as well, not just learn new things. And I'm confident that our viewers and listeners will have done the same here.
Well, I hope so. This is about learning.
Them. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean, Mary, I didn't mean to.
No, not at all. Please go ahead.
No, I was just, what I'm trying to do is get people to understand that that there is a new way of working, and hopefully what they'll do is that they'll start investigating it, because it's a fascinating way that people are getting results, and it's not reliant on the legacy sales and marketing methods of the past. But hopefully today people have learned something and they've got something to take away.
Yeah, I mean, the results speak for themselves, right? A lot of our viewers and listeners will have heard, the research that Gartner produced, where they found that 33% of buyers actually want a seller-free experience. And most people are worried because buyers are changing, but that's not actually the whole picture. The other side of the picture, and I've spoken to 11 solution architects or system integrators for very large companies, from WPP to Dentsu to others. And these are people that are involved in applying the technologies that those businesses run their whole business on. And the bad news is that it's also your employers who are trying to figure out a more effective way to sell their products and services. And unfortunately, one of the things that they're looking at are the salespeople themselves, because cold calling and cold email is hugely inefficient and hugely costly for very little return. And so guess what? It's not just your buyers that are trying to shift you out of your job. Unfortunately, it's also your own employers who are trying to look for better, smarter, and more efficient ways to do the same thing or do more. And so if we don't change as salespeople, then either our buyers will make us irrelevant or our very employers will make us irrelevant as well. So what you've shared here today was hugely inspirational for me. And I personally would recommend, you haven't endorsed me, you haven't sponsored me in any way, but I would personally recommend that people read your second edition book, because it covers a huge amount of things that you need to look at, especially the process that you talked about. We've talked about your book a bit, and I recognize now that we're out of time. It's gone by really fast. So a couple of questions I want to ask you. which I ask all of our guests that come on the show. So which three books would you recommend our viewers and listeners read? Or, maybe three experts that you recommend they follow and learn from?
The three books would be the Geoffrey Moore book, which is Crossing the Chasm. Second book is The First 90 Days, which is Michael D. Watkins. If you're getting a new job, as in you're being promoted or whatever, or you're moving to a new company, it's just awesome. It's got all kinds of templates and stuff for you to sit down and work out, so you don't walk in and get it all wrong. And another good book is by Michael Gale and Chris Aarons, which is The Digital Helix. I've read a lot of books about digital transformation, but this one is actually does get into the nuts and bolts of talking about digital transformation and understanding that it's not about a new ERP system or new payroll system or something like that. It is actually about empowering the people and providing them with and getting them to change the processes to be digital processes.
Yeah, I've read two of those books, but not Digital Helix I haven't read. Right. So that one sounds very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Tim.
You're welcome.
How can our viewers and listeners connect with you and learn more about you?
So the best place to get me is on LinkedIn. I'm Timothy or Tim Hughes on LinkedIn. I'm Timothy_Hughes on Twitter. And you can get the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers from Amazon across the world.
Tim, thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing what you've shared with us. I thought this was hugely informative, and I certainly learned a lot. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Mohit. I've loved it. It's been really exciting. Thank you, and a lovely snowy day as well.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for coming on. And this is Mohit Amin signing out. If you have any questions about what has been discussed today, do please contact us. Alternatively, if you're also interested in looking at the science of persuasion and sales, particularly from a neuroscience as well as a research perspective, I've interviewed 428 buyers in the last 15 years, so I can tell you what turns them away and what turns them towards you as a salesperson. Then link in the show notes for you to be able to contact me. Until the next episode, thank you, everyone.